A very warm welcome once again to PIM Monthly Montage. I'm Tharindu Amarasekara. Well, this is the session where PIM, being the nation's management mentor, really gets engaged and involved with regards to creating more knowledge, creating more awareness with regard to so many timely, pertinent topics. And as the country slowly emerges out of the third wave and the relevant lockdown, the big concern is it's a tough time, but how do we really get the best out of the people? People have their own stresses and concerns. Businesses are stressed, economy is stressed, and amidst all this, if we fail to bring out the best amongst our people, that definitely will lead to lots of further challenges and problems. And today, on this very timely topic of leadership in tough times, how to bring the best version out of your team members, we have two veterans joining us who have not only talked about it, but who continues to walk that talk on any given day. And it's my absolute pleasure as your moderator this evening to introduce these two members. We first have joining us from the PIM faculty, we have Dr. Samantha Rathnayake, who is a specialist in people management and leadership. Dr. Samantha Rathnayake has over 20 years of experience across different multinationals and organizations from multiple different domains, including the UN and also the ICICI Bank, and so much of variety of experience in his portfolio. He is currently a consultant at PIM, a respected member of the faculty, and he is also currently chairing the journal committee for multiple different publications across different countries, including India and Nepal. He is also the chairman of the Entrepreneur of the Year Awards Committee for this year as well. Dr. Samantha Rathnayake, welcome to PIM Monthly Montage. Absolute pleasure to have you.
Welcome.
Well, the second guest is definitely here adding a lot of, before she starts imparting her wisdom, she's already adding glamour and beauty to this evening, who is none other than Muditha Premarathne. Muditha is the Chief Commercial Officer for Daraz Sri Lanka and Daraz Pakistan, and she is, which is a part of the Alibaba Group. And we are very proud to say that she is an alumni member of the PIM, having completed her MBA with us. She is also a catalyst in bringing about digital transformation across organizations, quite an activist for encouraging digital adoption across organizations and industries, working together with so many different professional bodies in order to ensure there is a good and strong adoption of digitalization across our economy. Muditha, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you as well, and welcome to PIM Monthly Montage.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It's a great pleasure actually to be speaking in a forum where PIM is concerned. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Muditha, and Dr. Samantha, I just like to inform you, we will be having 4 rounds of questions, and I would share the question first, and I would open it up for both of you to give your comments. And after which we would hopefully get by that time more specific questions from our members as well who are joining us. The first question I would like to actually kickstart this evening's proceedings is, what are the biggest worries that people face in the current socio-economic times due to COVID-19? The economy is opening up, then there's the regulations, the businesses are not, I mean, yes, some businesses are booming, but many businesses are facing so much of turbulence in their business environment. And a lot of the companies tend to get too busy, worried, and thinking about their people instead of really too busy thinking about the business and the goals and the objectives and forgetting the people. In your view, right now, what is the biggest worry that people are facing given the current socio-economic conditions due to COVID-19? Dr. Samantha, we will start off with you.
Thank you, Tharindu. Thank you for that vibrant starting and keeping you this program. This is the 8th one. So you are actually making kind of a momentum, maintain the momentum very well. Coming back to the first round of the discussion, if you look at the term, the crisis or tough times for leaders, I would say the crisis and tough times are always the greatest review for leaders and particularly leadership. So leadership would be tested at big times in terms of the worries. So looking at the bigger picture of these worries, and mainly we can see that at a macro level of economic hardships, that's mainly the financial aspect, and then we can look at the central core discussion is the people aspect, the people, and in terms of the other big worries that in terms of the current readiness, the policy changes, and we need to change the policies, and so much of new more shapes of the policies are coming up, and because of these changes at operational, business operational and tactical level, there are so many changes. Coming back to this understanding of the context, may I say, if we actually go back to 100 years, this is after the theoretically, I'm not going to bring a lot of theories here. Let's say after Einstein, then particularly Niels Bohr, particularly 1930s onwards, exactly 1920s, exactly 100 years now. If you look at after the quantum physics, the broadly, with regard to the natural sciences to social sciences, because we are discussing this leadership in the context of social science. So in that light, if you look at 1940s, 50s, particularly after World War II, the many business schools and in the world, people start to talk about the value of the social science dimension. So in that light, if we come to last particularly 10, 20 years, if you look at 2015 World Economic Forum, if you look at 2018 World Economic Forum report, 2020, report on 2022 and report on 2025, if you look at all this, the topmost critical problem is having complex problem solving. So the problem solving, innovative in those lines, and trickling down for the 2025, it's mainly the people matter, people management, the self-management, the leadership and the technology line, and mainly the problem solving. So if you look at where we are in, we have been experiencing multiple crises like 2008 global crisis, and of course previously. In terms of 2020, with the dawn of 2020, we were anyway discussing about replacement of people, getting into these challenges of artificial intelligence, looking into other aspects of the new readiness for the moving from manual to technology. So in that light, so if we get into the pinnacle of this decade, starting from year 2020, Tarindu, we are at actually central spotlight now with regard to the complex problem solving. In that sense, the biggest worry from a people point of view, it's all about people management, because this enabling aspect of people is the matter. So if you look at before the COVID hit, the coronavirus infected disease 2019. So actually we are calling 2020. This crisis, the pandemic, is the central argument, kind of imperative testing for us to revisit our people practices, people management aspects. So broadly, shortening the answer for this biggest worries point of view, it's about getting the economic and financial lines line up, getting the policies lining up, getting our people management practices in this current context. Tarindu, before I conclude, may I say the earlier acronym we call SMAC, the social media, mobile, analytics and cloud. We were talking about the HRM is operating, people management is operating in a SMAC context. Now what has happened, it has taken to I would say we are compelled to revisit in that light these problems. I think we can explore further down how these complex problems to be handled, looked at, other dimensions, how we can bring the leadership line. So in my opening remarks, I would say, Tarindu, we are having a centralized people management challenge. That's my opening. Thank you.
All right, okay. Very interesting thoughts there, Doctor, not only from a people's perspective, but how that boils down to the companies as well. Muditha, your practicing professional with regard to digital technology, and you are also involved with leading teams and organizations, and you do this across cultures. Tell us, according to your experience, what is the biggest concern that people are, the socio-economic concerns that people are actually having these days?
Yeah, Tarinder. So I think you can dissect it into a couple of angles. See, from one side, obviously, because of such turbulence that's there in the economy, the environment that the businesses are operating in. Of course, the safety of the job is a concern, right? Because the challenge has stretched on so much. Initially, we thought it's just one wave, couple of months, then we can bounce back. But this is stretching, and now from the looks on predictions in the environment, it looks to be something that we are going to battle out for a couple of years. And the onslaught of the economic impact, that the repercussions are going to be stretching across a couple of more years. In terms of depressed market conditions. So I think on the top of mind, of course, the financial economic considerations. Do we get could it have been a better year in terms of our economic rewards? There's so much of those factors that are lined up in most of our employees' minds, I think, and those companies that belong to industries that are heavily affected. And I'm sure those people, one of the biggest pressing issues is that. And we also have the layoffs and resizing, downsizing impacts on the people's minds. And this is happening, and for sure. And the impact in terms of, people who are in age groups that are, senior age groups who are getting laid off, and the chances of getting re-employment in current situations, so pretty bad, right? So this is one area in terms of job security. And then there is also the career paths, career growths, etc. That's also impinging, because people now, the companies are like, okay, we are retaining them. It's a big enough, good enough offer that we are actually keeping them in the payroll, kind of an attitude sometimes, because in fact, in the given scenario, it's also a blessing to have a job, sort of an attitude is there. And therefore, people's usual aggressive expectations have to be tabled later. But it doesn't leave their mind, right? If you ask what's in their minds, they would also think, okay, my career path has kind of slowed down over a couple of years, taken a 2-year back step, kind of a thing. And then there is also the parts that relate to the knowledge workers who travel globally, have a wider scope in, globalized environment, which has also gotten restricted. And thirdly, I think for all these are work-related restrictions, so restrictions that impinge on their progress. But there's also another part, I feel, that people are constantly second-guessing themselves in terms of whether they are doing good enough. Because see, when we are managing client relationships, for instance, or when we are contributing in a meeting, etc., I feel the teams now have to double up actually than even before. We have to get prepared, like walking into a client meeting and talking. Instead that, you have to like work harder getting prepared just to, surmount that digital gulf, right? It's the same when I manage the PK team. Instead of having the luxury to travel there and be with them and troubleshoot or brainstorm a strategy, here I am trying to, bridge that gap between the digital, across the digital. So I think this, so you
Muditha,
are
what you're
always...
saying, sorry to interrupt, but what you're saying is, earlier it was like going on a trip in Yal, and now it's like going in Jurassic Park. That's what you're saying.
Exactly. And you're not sure because you don't have that affirmation that you would have been there for yourself. So because it's new territory, right? Maybe, I mean, it has become better after 2 years of, like almost 2 years of working across digital spaces, having Zoom meetings. Now it's becoming more confidence for us that you've actually achieved the objective of the meeting. I think maybe in time to come, it will be a little bit more of a new norm. But I think people are still, also kind of, questioning themselves. This is on top of their minds, whether they have done the job right, whether they've, actually achieved the objective, etc. So I think these are some of the pressing factors that are on their mind. And also for managers, especially like HR personnel, they also have this where they are supposed to have physical contact, like one-to-one meetings, have interactions with the teams. Now they're doing it more digitally. Maybe they also kind of have this gap in terms of achieving the ideal status. So I think these are some of the questions that are in people's minds.
All right, excellent. I think Muditha, you laid it out very clearly in terms of what exactly people are going through. Like, it's sometimes the same things we used to do earlier, but we don't have the affirmations. Earlier we can see the reaction on the people's face and we get the hint whether things are going good or not. Now you're in the dark because you send an email, and until you get the reply and until you see that email, you really don't know what's going on. I think you made it very pragmatic there in terms of what issues people are really facing. Now, let's get on to the role of a team leader or a manager. It's very easy because a manager is also not really a superman or a superwoman. Let's be very gender neutral here. A manager is also not a superman or superwoman. Naturally, he or she might tend to get bogged down by all the work tasks and the goals and the targets and all that. And it's very natural to sometimes lose the touch with people. You forget the people factor. Now, what would the signs be? Dr. Samantha, I would like to start off with you because you're a people specialist. You know to read the pulse of the people. Now, how can a manager or a team lead identify, especially when there is a team member who might really be under stress? Some people are very open about it, but Sri Lankan culture, unfortunately, we have a culture in this country where we think talking about stress, talking about mental stress, or let's say if we are having some kind of a mental downward moment, we think talking about it is a weakness. And seeing a counselor used to be seen as if you're mad, and these are taboo things you don't want people to know. My question to you is, how can a manager realize, especially if someone is maybe trying to hide the fact that they are under stress and facing a lot of mental challenges?
Wonderful, Tarandu. I think now you are going to get into a more trickling down specific areas, particularly highlighting this one of the fascinating aspects of people management of dealing with stress, emotions, such as of those states. So let me put it back to the basics of leadership. Now, if we look at the leadership without going to any book definition, in a simple terms, is all about in a given situation, how to achieve. We are going to achieve something, or we are going to work together. We are going to work towards one mission or a goal. But in that light, what is the role of leadership? The leadership role comes where the art and science of what it can be inspiration, it can be influencing, it can be inspiring. So all sorts of guiding, coaching, mentoring, all aspects, a basket of activities coming from a leader. Now that means there is the art and science of influencing, inspiring. So to whom, with whom you are going to work this? So your team members can be a small team, large team, particularly in a crisis situation like this. As I said, crisis is a great reviewer for leadership. In that light, Tarandu, may I say, rather than looking at from a same angle, probably we can look at in different baskets to approach. So if I simply look at when you are working with teams and particularly large groups or employees, looking at your staff per se, colleagues, probably you can look at the two dimensions. One is there are sort of people who are very passive versus active. That's a one dimension. So another aspect is you can look at in line with, so those who are all very constructively supporting you, there are destructive people also. So if you look at the diagram here, you would see that this passive and the active, in terms of the upper one, They are the constructive. There's no problem with you. Like they are very loyal, calm, quiet. So they are associating with you, supporting you, involved with you, responding well. So there's a lot of positives, particularly in the upper part. But the challenge comes, particularly the area that you have asked about, this negotiation and emotion matter, comes for the lower. That is the passive and destructive. So in that light, if you look at the active passive, the bottom part is the destructive, the center. So on one hand, there are a lot of people who are actually victims. So they are passive but can't help, but destructive, negative, and so on. But there are a couple of people, Tarandu, in a team, very critical. So they are procrastinating their work, delaying the work, creating a new scenarios, if possible, try to sabotage all that. But the idea here is, when it comes to emotions, there are two types. One is there are genuine cases, genuinely depressed, stressed, and a lot of traumatic issues, family issues, new demands, like as Muditha rightly pointed out, some of the behavioral attributes of people that genuinely under those circumstances. Of course, we should be able to take a call versus email. You mentioned about email, Tarindu. So sometimes there is a time beyond email, take a call and ask, see, because you can see that some behavioral changes. Of course, those are the indicators.
Maybe you can observe the voice changes, the tone
Voice changes, tone changes, the articulation, the involvement, you see a drastic change. At the same time, we should not forget the fact that in such situation, the problem with the genuine cases, other than there is a special counseling, coaching requirements, the other aspect is we should be able to always look at the behavioral changes. Someone is not responding, the mails are getting like earlier respond well, but not now. And when you're asking something, always it takes time and try to avoid not coming forward. So all these aspects are there, because we should not forget the fact that in the current context, they are coming to the spotlight, because your dress code might be different, but your delivery has come to a very stressful scenario. Unlike in a working setup, we can further drill down. So the essence is, as a leader, as a people person, I want to tell you three things. While looking at the type of people you are working and what sort of approach, particularly I used to call this the confuse, diffuse, and infuse. So leader's task is, Tarendu, in a confuse and diffuse setup, bringing the infuse, bringing the new perspective, bringing the idea of what we are supposed to do. So in that light, of course, genuine stress, negative emotional cases to be handled at a different format, whereas all the others, we can change our approach and align and navigate based on the requirements of the type of people we are working centrally. Back in mind, keep back in mind the emotional aspects of people. That's a kind of a currency. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. As you very correctly said, be tuned in to the people and their emotions, and also it's very easy for us to get used to these emails and messages, and it's a lot more easy, as you said. Maybe it might take a bit of effort, but you can connect with people much more easily with that one simple phone call. Little things, but that goes a long way. Muditha, your thoughts? If a team member, especially maybe someone is trying to hide their emotions, the fact that they're going through a mentally challenging time, how can a manager or a leader really identify this? What are the symptoms that something is not right?
Yeah, Tharin. So I think this is one area that I totally agree with what Dr. Samantha was saying, that it's all about being very tuned into your team, right? So it depends on each individual member of your team, because some of them, it's just the behavioral change that you need to be tuned into, because some of them are going to be the ones who are aggressive when they are, depressed or something, the ones who are all out usually arguing, putting their thoughts in front all the time. If those ones go quiet, that means there is a problem with them. Even the ones who are quiet and calm sometimes get kind of, aggressive, argumentative, then there is also something in there.
So I think it's all to do with that you need at this time, though it sounds like a task for the leaders, it's one of the important tasks that we understand each of our key people's moods, characteristics, their usual behavioral patterns. This is key. So when they turn and change, that is the sign. You need to know each of them, how they work. Some of them work very, in different patterns. And this you can notice the minute they change. If something's happening in their lives, you can notice this. So this is why I truly believe that, you, as a leader, if you're a good leader, you should be able to identify that. That's your strength, that you know your team and each of them well enough to know when each of them go through, because their display of what they are going through will be individual to them. You should be able to detect that. And when you do notice it, see, sometimes we work a lot through the intranet, right? There is sometimes messages put and recalled. And I always message back and ask, hey, what's up? What's going on? Is everything okay? And these retrieved messages always prove to be something, except for few instances they say, oh, you just messaged somebody else and it went to you and I recalled. But these are signs where they're trying to say something, but they're not sure whether they should, share it, then they recall it. So these are symptoms that I usually pay attention. I try to, dig deeper, message and engage them. So they end up actually talking about a problem that they are facing. Some of them may just say, oh, no, nothing much, but those words will indicate also, there is something. Even great, instead of saying, hey, things are great, they might say, yeah, so, not bad. So those are actually indications that, they are holding back, but there's something in them that they want to voice out. So I think if you really, as a good leader, you need to listen to your team's problems, number one. Number two, if you want them to speak, you have to be able to set that time aside. You cannot show that you are in a rush, that you are going to be attending to something else and then expect them to, open up to you and talk. If you are committed, you have to be committed. You have to be able to say, we have 15, 20 minutes. Why don't we catch a coffee? Why don't you talk about this? So that is how, maybe you can actually, Tarindu, the ones who are trying to hide, you can actually, get to talk and then we can find solutions. I think because finding solutions, one thing I realize is like, it's really worth, because see, to hire people nowadays, we spend a lot of time, right? The processes are rigorous. There's a lot of ways that we assess people, different departments get involved, then you onboard them, then you train them. And the ones who are in your teams have a lot of tacit knowledge that they have acquired over time, and retaining them, I mean, just as from a humane perspective, it's also very economic perspective, it matters, right? So as managers who are very task oriented and feel that, okay, I don't have time, I'm not a people's person, I'm a task person, they too should take this as a very serious responsibility for them, because economically also, in economic sense also, retaining teams by being tuned to them and managing their emotions is still task oriented, right? They do, if someone feels they don't want to be people oriented, still it matters, because the impact is so great of not investing that right time to find the problem the person is going through and fixing it. Instead, you allow for attrition, and then you have to go through that whole big cycle of hiring again, training again, all that, and the disruption of the learning curve. So I think it's really, really important that every one of us stay really closely tuned to our team members and their mental status, and being committed to fixing it.
Understood. I would like to move on into the next question, and Muditha would like to start with you this time. Now, this work from home, I believe you've been doing it for the last so many months, maybe the last 2 years. We at PIM have been doing the same, but does it not lead to a strain in the relationship between a leader and his team? And what can be done to minimize this strain or the negative impact?
Yeah, I think it does, because at the end of the day, that body languages that we spoke of initially, that smile, that small, simple gestures are missing, right? It doesn't come across. And therefore, it's just mostly to do with the communication that we are going to have. And work from home has also created this kind of a schedule, one after the other meeting kind of a habit. Like, you know, your calendar is open, people slot in meetings, and
you mean the 24-hour work slot?
Exactly. And people just take for granted that it's a slot available, and it's just the fact that the meeting has just ended, you are not even getting 5 minutes, right?
Muditha, I have a question. They say earlier you used to limit the work given to people because they have to go home. Now they are home. So limitless.
Unlimited work, right? And no coffee breaks considered, no lunch breaks considered, no wash breaks considered, I think, at the end of the day. And then you have to realize this people's mindset, right? You haven't even taken a break from one, maybe a stressful meeting, to the next one. And then you switch to that next meeting with that same kind of, you know, maybe the kind of mood that you engaged with the previous meeting, which is not great, right? You should at least have a small coffee break or some sort of breathing space in between, which is not happening. So I think work from home is definitely, number one, more time is being spent by people who are actually working great hours. Number two, it also takes away that social pleasure of having your team, your members around, and cracking a small joke and, you know, laughing about it. So I think if you really want to bring back some elements of it, it's also about how to schedule meetings, being a little sensitive to a calendar. And secondly, I think, you know, starting a meeting with a little bit of maybe investing into a 2-3 minutes of, you know, small talk, which would usually do anyway when we enter a meeting room, and then you take it from there. And I think one thing I do is, like, in the middle of, you know, a bit of a tension topic, you can always, you know, lighten the mood again by, you know, talking about a lighter note, a bit of a joke, and then, you know, get everybody to a bit of a de-stress mode. Because I mean, after all, everybody works much better when they are in a less tension, less stressed out mode. The productivity is much higher. So yeah. Tarindu, I hope that answers, or did I leave?
Absolutely, Muditha. Dr. Samantha, your thoughts. How can a leader bring down the strain on the relationship that this working from home creates between the leader and the team member? In other words, how can the leader make sure that though they are working distantly and working apart from each other, the relationship still stays strong?
So, Tarindu, thank you very much for bringing this question. And while thanking Ms. Muditha for setting the actual nitty-gritties and real practices happening and all good ones. Thank you, Muditha, for that. Coming back, since this COVID-19 has given, the new pandemic has given an opportunity for us to really look at the work from home. I want to tell you that I just started one research project with a student, and now we are going to look at how the work from home is affecting to these couple of key HR practices, and particularly to the work-life harmony integration aspects. So probably by end of December or latest early January, we will be in a proper position to give you evidence-based, kind of structured, very qualitative ground, breaking, realities in terms of that light. So while keeping that side, for a different exercise, I have extensively had to go through a couple of reports on this matter in terms of this McKinsey World Economic Forum, this Dubai 20 white paper, and the PricewaterhouseCoopers new document, and this Deloitte. So there are about 10-15 documents I had to go through for a different discussion recently about the future of work. So in that light, so if you look at this work from home, while having all these challenges, Tarindu, the central point is now, this has been proven, given the evidence by the McKinsey also, the central point is the proximity. So the proximity, the physical presence. So let's call physical presence is a central point. So based on that, so we can look at backward and forward in a horizontal line, what jobs need to be in the context of close and what is not. So of course 1 to 10 is a quite interesting findings. I don't like to go to a detail of that, but certain jobs of course we can work it, but all the other areas have different propositions in terms of the work from home. It is not the 100%. But the idea is, if the case is such, if the situation is compelled for us to work from home and find out all the best possible optimized scenarios to get people to work, contribute, support, and assist in the organization process, from a leader's point of view, as you rightly asked, few challenges there. So one is the cultural aspects. So one is, of course, engagement aspects. One is all about their communication other than this, the main communication channels. And while looking at all these, when you are looking at the people management function, we need to focus on two things. One is, of course, people side. The other side is the performance aspect. So Tarindu, just to share, one of the ILO recent studies conducted all over the world, more than about 100 countries, they have just asked what should be the best working from home performance management system. There are ample number of performance evaluation, performance alignment, performance enhancement tools used by various companies. The least discussed, one of the least discussed is managing by objectives, which was postulated by Peter Drucker in way back in 1954. But it has now come to the spotlight. So it is now in the central point. So the ILO report concluded that, it's available in the ILO website, you can read that. It says that in the current context, try to get the work from home connectivity. One of the aspects is that managing by objectives. If I give a very brief outline, so we have been practicing this goal setting, objectives, and so on. So in that light, even the KPIs, we can work towards this typical, if I use some two technical jargon, this lag indicators and the leading indicators on like weekly, monthly basis, on project to project basis. So short term, and it can phase out to a period. So that means while having the people all good work, as Ms. Muditha correctly pointed out, that the refreshing, having some infuse, getting some inspiration, all while looking at that, end of the day, we have tasks to achieve, effectiveness to reach. So we have to achieve certain goals and objectives. In that light, we need to have a mechanism. So that's why there's a whole saying, you can't change the people, but you can change the system. So through the system, people will adapt. So we need to have some techniques such as new aspects of looking at, if the case is working from home, the connectivity is not only via soft aspects, there should be some hard aspects such as measuring of what they are doing and their delivery of output, outcomes, and so on. So in essence, it's a matter of looking at the people, looking at the task, and align according to the context. It's a matter of the essence in this life. Thank you.
Some excellent thoughts there, Doctor. I want to take you to a question which has been shared to both of you by Dr. Ravi Bamanu-Singhan. During some of the recent McKinsey reports have shown that during this current time, 35% of globally surveyed companies have done the transformation, and 65% are thinking of going in for this digital transformation. How do you really lead the people during a digital transformation? Because most of the digital transformations fail, and you can correct me if I'm wrong in this, but research shows most of the transformation fails, not because of the technology, but because of the people. Right? People not adopting it properly, not adapting to it properly. So how do you really lead people to make the digital transformation a success? Dr. Samantha, we'll start from you.
Right, okay. In this case, I think one proposition to be very clearly identified with regard to this digitalization and digital transformation. So the word transformation has multiple meanings. So if I put it to in a simple line, we can look at, there is an enhancement side, there is a transformation side. So the enhancement, if I put you some concepts here, enhancement means some that substitution and modification. There are certain things we do some like minor changes of substituting for previous activities into the new one, certain modifications, they're all enhancement. That is not transformation. So that sometimes one may taken it mistakenly, the enhancement also as a transformation, which is not the case. If it is, there's a transformation, one should look at more modifications and redefinitions. So that is where the new practices, new not merely incremental changes, some drastic changes, shift in the practice, new focus, policy differences, I would say policy changes, and coming out with the new models and so on. So my discussion is about transformation. In that light, the moment the word comes digital, the application of these digital tools do not mean a digital transformation. It's about the shift in thinking, shift in practice, shift in real results. So that is where we should look at what the input we are exerting and what outputs we are generating and what outcomes we are bringing, called qualitative. If we go further, like resource-based thinking, which I am writing an article these days, if I bring those thoughts, here we should look at how that output, outcome, and the impact, the true results would come out of this. So in the coming back to your question, in the digital transformation, it is not about adhering to certain systems, high-tech points. The way back in one of the conferences, we coined this as high-tech, high-touch. So the people factor comes through the touch. So that's a soft aspect. The high-tech aspect is a hard aspect. It's a fine blend of, it's a matter of, as people professionals, we need to bring the balance of high tech and touch through hard and soft version, the integration. So that failing factor is mainly occurring because of we might be shifting our practices rather without looking at the mindset shift, policy shift, our readiness of delivery shift, in terms of the expected output, outcome, clarity. In those lines, sometimes we are not clear. So then we shift, then we can see that people are not ready, systems are not ready, and our the substantial amount of inputs are getting wasted. So that's why the story shows that people are shifting because of compelling them to go, but the systems are not ready. If I give a quick example, since I'm in education, since we are discussing with multiple institutions, so sometimes we ask people to go to the digital platforms, but they are not ready with the required competency list. If the competencies are not there, what may happen? We go and show, we go and deliver, but the exact expected output and outcomes are not there. So that's a key differentiator, what I would say. In essence, enhancement to transformation is a distinct journey. So one should identify where you are going to focus on, Tarendu. Thank you.
Ms. Muditha, your thoughts?
So Tarendu, I think as Doctor also mentioned, I think it falls into three different distinct areas that is required for the transformation journeys. So first of all, there should be the infrastructure if you are talking about digital implementations. Then of course you have to have the competencies, and of course primarily and most importantly the mindset and the that mindset has to be there. So we see this all the time when we are trying to do the digital transformation in terms of seller ecosystems in Daras, for instance. If you take our agenda is to digitize commerce, right? And this, it's very interesting to notice that, as Doctor said, if all that is there, the hardware is there, maybe they have the competency, but overall, if the mindset from the top to the down is not available, things don't move, that it gets stuck. So for instance, there was a time we might approach a very potential product manufacturer who we know based on the overall global market that it is a very good product fit for the online sales. So we approach them and they have very established general, offline trade, for instance. But the mindset is, no, Right now, we are doing very well in our general trade. We are not going to be open to e-commerce. Now the situation changed. Offline is closed, COVID is happening, social distancing is happening, the market conditions, the environment conditions, forcing these organizations, for instance, to rethink, right, re-engineer themselves. So from one side, they are looking at trying to get their digital competency in terms of acquiring the digital team, trying to get the infrastructure ready in terms of getting websites ready, servers ready, all those. And then still, you might have mindset split. The certain, for instance, finance might be seeing about e-commerce in the same way the normal general trade profitability is concerned, but that's not the case. Profitability criteria is being applied for e-commerce versus general trade is so much more different. And then the people who are managing operations in terms of processes, documentation needed, release of goods, you know, the audit team within, compliance teams, how they treat general trade versus this new digital transformation will be a complete, you know, bipolar kind of a situation. So what do you need? You need a complete mindset, at least to be open-minded that this is something different. This is a transformation, and therefore you need to think away from what you are used to. So this is sometimes lacking. So for instance, there's a concept called dropship model when we are operating and inviting a seller to become a marketplace seller on, for instance, a platform, marketplace platform. Concept is that you list your products, we feature and drive traffic, we generate a sale. When the sale happens, you pick, pack, and dispatch your product. Now, for an organization who's used to invoicing a bulk amount of products to a certain general trade channel, this concept of invoicing one by one can become like, you know, it's a transformation in mindset, right? They need to change that thinking that they had applied previously. And if they were willing to walk that new step, new journey, take a step towards that new journey, what happens is these individual orders will mount, because the nature of e-commerce is that you get an amalgamation of individual sellers still demanding your product, maybe 5% still. But if you don't have the mindset to adopt the dropship method, you wouldn't have never experienced it. So these are some of the things that I see. As Dr. very rightly said, mindset is the most crucial. The rest can be acquired easily. You know, the infrastructure and competencies that is there to be acquired. But even if you have those two, if you are lacking in the right mindset, that is where we cannot have this transformation.
All right, some fantastic thoughts there, especially with regard to handling the digital transformation. Quickly moving on to some of our final questions. How do you really get the best out of your team members during these times? Because they are under pressure. There's so much to be looked into, pressure from home, pressure from the workplace and all that. But how do you get the best out of them? I would like if you could both spend about, say, 2 to 2.5 minutes each on this. Dr. Samantha, we will start with you.
So, Dharendu, thank you very much. So, first of all, I want to tell you that always tough times, if you look at the macro picture, in essence, is always not bad. If we go back to history of 1920s, during the Great Depression, the hard times, the birthplace for the Walt Disney. So, if you look at particularly the McDonald's, the post-World War II, the hard times, the birth for McDonald's. 70s, Microsoft, 80s, the CNN. If you look at the 2008 global credit crunch, the economic downturn, so that's a time for the birth for the Airbnb. So similarly, so our hard times are the testing grounds for us, not the looking at so totally negatively. So there are ample number of opportunities to look at in a different point. But in essence, since you are asking a question, particularly say, get best out of your team, I want to tell you that whether it is yesterday or today or tomorrow, the trust is the operating system. So from a leadership point of view, from a people leadership point of view, I want to tell you that trust is the operating system. So in that line, so we have to look at certain things like if I put it to a particular in a current pandemic scenario, there is a phase that we are experiencing. Like one can look at the response level, response phase, and then to a recovery phase. So the response recovery cannot be stretched so long. So then we need to look at ways and means of thriving. So first of all, we need to get back to our basics. So here it reminds what the Tom Peters said way back in 80s, back to basics, be brilliant on basics, build on basics. So if the case is such, like the best out of comes when the things are in clearer, so that while having the trust in the focal point, the central point, getting your members back to your what you are supposed to do. The pandemic is a kind of a response recovery stage, but you are supposed to go for thriving. So for that, we need to be ready. So that's why if you look at my way of approaching on this matter is that looking at the Boston Consultancy Group latest the skill set, it says survive, thrive, and inspire. So that survive and thrive are all just negative but balancing concerns. But the thriving is all about getting into a part of the solution. So as a people leader, what we should do, we should tell the truth, get the members to work it out of our basics and looking at what we are expected to do and revisit what we can do, what we can't do. Then the new challenges in that light. So lining up for the future. To conclude that, since you have given 2.5 minutes, from a PIM point of view, I can connect it always in different times, particularly difficult times of this. So we have a concept called die in a disaster. So dedication, innovation, execution. So dedication comes from the heart. The innovation comes from the head. The execution comes from the hand. So the total personality. So all three are important. So in a difficult time, get the members to concentrate on what they can contribute, what they can work it out, the basics, because the difficult time, Tarindu, may come, may go, but your main fundamentals should not change. And if you are taking a short-term decisions at this time, that will be either boomerang or backfire when you are at good times. So the essence is that work on basics.
Understood. Muditha, let me go to you on the quiz. So you handle and deal with a lot of millennials, young people, right? How do you really bring out the best in them? And also, how do you keep them innovative during these tough times? Share with us. And like you're from Sri Lanka, you've got your team in Pakistan and Sri Lanka, both young people. How do you really give them, kind of stabilize them, but at the same time keep them innovative? Share with us your secret recipe.
Okay, so I think I'll be very explain it the way I do it, so it will be very practical examples. So first it starts with having a proper very clarity in terms of goals. It's what doctor was talking about, management by objectives. So very clear KPIs, very clear time bound smart objectives that we then break down right down to minute day-on-day task or even hourly task, special campaign-driven. Everything is broken down to bite size. So this keeps things from looking not too big for or too daunting for the young teams. It's, they need to feel invigorated and also have that gratification on a daily basis that they've hit it. So if you don't have bite-sized daily kind of task to celebrate achievement, what happens is the whole month of grinding kind of gets you down, right? Your motivation's down. But when it's daily, you see that you hit it.
I believe you're talking about the concept of celebrating the small wins.
Exactly. And to have small wins, you need to also break down your big goals into smaller goals so that you can feel that you've achieved it and it's okay, let's power up and go for the next run kind of a feeling. So this is one aspect. Secondly, I think it's the use of correct tools. You need to have proper dashboards, proper discussions, facilitations, not to take too much time out of teams to just report. It should be available there for us to monitor, because knowing that there's so much stress on their time, etc., we shouldn't also ask them to, I truly believe we should facilitate them with evaluating themselves easily. And then there should be collaboration tools, groups, intranets, etc. And these groups should be places where we openly discuss, collaborate, brainstorm, troubleshoot in a faster pace, so that the frustration of having to wait for someone on the, socially distanced work from home scenario is, reduced, so that there is agility, there is response times are manageable. And thirdly, I think how to best bring the best out is to recognize all the time that, when they do a good job, in most of the time, in reality, most organizations, I mean, 80%, 90% of your team are almost at least 60% of the time doing good work, right? They're doing right work. And because it's the majority of the scale, we tend to appreciate that. Our focus is always tend to be, most of the management time is like, troubleshooting, highlighting what's going wrong, focusing on those. And our time is spent on, breaking down those situations, and the highlighting, spotlighting of those people at that time, they are under stress. But we never tend to take that time to actually talk about the good stuff. So I think taking a moment all the time, drop a message, put a, superstar emojis. I think emojis are a very easy way to be, gratifying millennials. They understand the emotions surrounding it. And this is also a good way to connect and bridge that gap, communication gap that's there. So you can always, and they thrive on it. And in group settings, when you announce things, call out, shout out, give a shout out to someone, I think these are small things that really bring the kind of best out of them, keep them motivated, make them want to run that extra mile for another very challenging thing. And I think also another bit is a gamification of goals. Like, you've got to make it fun. Like, it's kind of a, a challenge that we talk about. We were going after something for that sort of, I should use this word, the kick of it, the feel of gratification you get for winning it, more than anything associated with. And then we talk even in, like, settings. I mean, when you want to bring in the situational leadership, for instance, I always talk, like, think of a team, like, the ball passes, no one hesitates when it comes to you. You take it in a split second, and you pass also to the one is good for that situation, that formation in the field. So I always encourage, don't hesitate, don't have that ego trip, don't have that second thinking, should I give the credit or the limelight to the next one? It's about winning as a team. So this kind of thought processes kind of allow to bring the best out of these younger teams, because they also want it to be a little bit less serious, but they are doing a lot of serious work, but they just want a light-hearted note into it as well.
Ms. Muditha Premarathne and Dr. Samantha Rathnayake, thank you for a very vital 1 hour where we shared all your expertise and knowledge on this very timely topic of how do we get the best out of the people. I believe you brought so many different perspectives from your own practical experiences, from the academic and research-oriented perspectives, how to really get this going. It's no 10-step plan or something easy. I believe from what you shared, all we could go back and reiterate the fact that managing people is an art. One could share the brush strokes and the equipment, but how you really paint your style of management is truly up to you, and truly up to the dynamics of that particular manager, leader, and the associated team. Thank you for joining us today, and also wishing you both best of luck with the future endeavors. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much, Sam. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Samantha. Take care. Bye.
And with that, we wrap up today's episode of the PIM Monthly Montage. We've done a slight twist. Instead of the first Thursday of the month, now we have it on the second Thursday of the month, for the simple reason that with officers slowly picking up again in terms of the usual work practices, we believe the first week usually tends to get a bit more hectic. And not that the second week is any easier or a luxury and a comfort, but definitely a lesser evil in terms of many different challenges. So hence, we have shifted the PIM Monthly Montage to the second Thursday of every month. I will see you in August. Have a great month ahead. Thank you for joining in. I'm Rathnayake and Ms. I will see you with the next PIM Monthly Montage. Have a great month.
Bye.